Hello, I make us the story about fighting out the Jinchuriki of the Venom. Let's start. And subscribe to my channel, please.
It started 6 years ago. I was 6 years old when I became the moment I took an odd turn and came out better than the ones whom had done this to me, the day I became Neo Venom. 6 nen mei ni furashu baku. Is the specimen ready? Said the snake like form of Orochimaru, to a blank masked emotionless lab tech, and the lab tech said, "Hi, Orochimaru sama, the subject is read." The introduction of the substance. In a stoically void manner, while observing a restrained blonde haired child, on a hospital bed in a testing chamber, through an observatio window and then to the jar of pitch black oil thick material, on the work table in front of him, that was connected via a tube to the chamber holding the child and the nozzle. The tube was hovering over the bed. Very good, you're dismissed and make certain that the Hokage does not found us. Orochimaru said, as the lab tech bowed and vanished in a puff of dust. Note the belief. Shushin cause a plume of smoke is a dangerous belief due to breathing and ventilation issues, so it is dust in the fiction which then settle on the floor, but Orochimaru pa mind, and then he switched on the jar's vacuum to suck up the substance in the tube and left it to flow through the pipes. Once through the pipes, the nozzle at the end of pipe sprayed the oily goo over the child, and the reaction was immediate in the child, as he woke up and screamed bloody M. As the child was coated head to toe in the oily goo, after a while the child stopped screaming and passed out, from the pain. Maindosakepu. Within the mind of the child, a power being was aware of what was happening to its host, but because of the seal, it could do nothing to help, knowing that if it would raise its chakra levels as a flare to call for help. But it was not to be. The seal binding child was too strong, and all it could do was watch and wait. Outside of the mindscape, the oily material formed over the unconscious child and tinted from its usual straight black to a dark crimson, before morphing into a skin-tight B suit, with streamline armor like pauldrons, gauntlets, chestplate, belt, helmet and boots, with the chestplate decorated with a white demonic spider. And it looks like the end of the Earth Spider-Man costume. Endafurashubaku. Since that day, we had been biding our time and waiting for the right moment to make our escape. It was 6 years and 1 month after becoming Venom that we had the CH. And it was during a field test of our trained powers of cryogenics and lava control, as well as our skill in accuracy. It started when we arrived at the site of a SS rank mission, to eliminate a populace of villagers in a small town outside of the main city in Kusagaku no Sato and capture Kusanagi no Jiri. With Venom's main job as destruction, all but one of his escorts had vanished into the town to hunt down the sword, while the one remaining kept an eye. The child, and that was the only window he needed, as the one left being was not real bright and had the key to his cuffs dangling from his pocket. After a while, the guard then chose to turn his back on his charge, and that was when the child had struck, as he stealthily, from Spider-Man pilfered the keys T cuffs and silently as he could, unlocked the links, before pocketing the evidence, and then he struck once more, with an outstretched hand holding an unknown hand seal, dubbed Kumo. Once he made the Kumo seal, a silver goo substance shot out from his wrist from below his palm and tightly bound his prey, effectively gagging him so no escaped him. After Venom had completely covered the guard with the silver goo, they then began to run out of the field as quietly as possible and made his way through the jungle. As he through the jungle, Venom began calling its presence to encroach on the child's body, until it was a full suit, and with the full suit, Venom was faster, agile and durable. Once T was in place, Venom then held out his palm, aiming for the ground a meter in front of him, and a blast of super cold fog shot out, causing the moisture in the air to condense freeze, making the starts of a ramp which he used to slide through the air. Once he extended the ramp into a track. Surfing along the track made from ice, Venom made his way due south, which was the primary direction he came from, with a few twists and turns, until he came across Avalage. This one had a great many hot springs and casinos in it. But due to the constant surfing, Venom was now feeling its host stamina falling and falling rapidly, until Phi could no longer keep his balance and fell off the ice track. Below the ice track was a hot spring, a female-only hot spring, and it was full of women, both young and old, Kunyuchi and civilian. One such Kunyuchi was a buxom platinum blonde beauty named Senju Tsunade, whom notice a black human shadow falling out of the sky fast and without even thinking of her attire, a barely fitting white towel. Tsunade jumped up and moved under the figure was to land, where she then caught the now known child, wear a red-tinted black armored bodysuit, which then like a lick flowed away from the head, arms and leg, to form a tight black muscle shirt and crimson pants. The suit also showed off a very familiar blonde-haired and whisker marks. Tsunade's actions caught the attention of the others using the spring, so when she had caught the child, they all shrieked and crowded around the child to ensure he was Auri. After Tsunade got some breathing room, she then placed the kid she knows as Uzumaki Naruto on a deck bed, a bed version of a pool's deck chair, and used a medical jutsu on him, finding out that he was just exhausted and needed rest. The blackness cleared from Venom's mind and he saw he was in a new room, not windowless white room of his cell on his ratted cot, but the spacious bright bedroom of a apartment, on the softest bed he'd ever felt even before the kidnapping. A creak was the sound that brought Venom from his stunned state, and when he turned towards sound, he saw a young black-haired woman entering the room with a tray of moisturizing oils, from the scent of them knowing there for the ache and pains in his musk. Venom didn't react when she approached and massaged the oils into his body. "We thank you, ma'am," Venom said, after she was finished, and the women jumped at the sound, turning towards young boy's face, seeing his eyes were open, and exclaim, "Oh, Naruto-kun, you're awake." "Naruto. Naruto is a name we have not been called in 6.5 years," was her response as Venom flipped slowly to his back, which showed impressive six-pack and pecs, causing the girl to blush cherry red but also look confused. And when Tsunade arrived, as she heard Shizune screams, "Find her godson Awak." "Naruto-kun, how are you feeling?" she asked, as she made her way over to the bed. "Very sore, ma'am. And with my accelerated healing ability blocked, we cannot reply damage," was Venom's response, and while confused over his reference of we, instead of I, Tsunade began examining Venom's body for any seals on his body, as she ordered Shizune to retrieve her sealing kit. After hours of searching, Tsunade found the offending seal, planted over his right chest pec, and with the help of Shizune, she paints OV seal with sealing ink and performs the ram sign and says, "Okay Naruto-kun, this may hurt Fuinjutsu, Kai," which flooded Venom with a large amount of foreign chakra. Melted away the restrictor seal and left Venom with clear skin, before Venom's energy began to return in droves, until his body became engulfed in golden chakra. Once the glowing chakra had receded, Venom was left out cold and snoring his head off. Seeing this, Tsunade and Shizune decide to leave him to rest and left to room to say message to Konoha. In the land of fire, in Konohagakure no Sato, several of its citizens going about their day in a very downtrodden manner, while they remembered a certain ball of energy loved with all their hearts, and some also had started to just cry outright, as they believed that they'll never see him again. In the office of the Hokage, whom was slaving the torture of all village leaders known as paperwork, the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was interrupted by the sound of a creature summoning's arrival. Looking up, he sees then average blue-striped wild slug, who says, "Hokage-sama, I have a message from Tsunade-sama," removing the scroll from its body and placing it on the table. Looking at the scroll, Hiruzen wondered what Tsunade wanted and why now was she contacting him. With his curiosity raised, Hiruzen reached for the weirdly dry scroll and it to read the contents. "Dear Sensei, I was relaxing in the open-aired hot springs of Nisuzangakure no Sato, when notice a child-sized figure falling out of the sky, quickly thinking I had jumped up and figure, who was covered in what looked like an organic suit, as after I had caught the child, the suit morphed organically into a sleeveless muscle shirt and short, revealing wearer was none other than my godson Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. I am writing this letter so that when I arrive home, you'll have an answer for my question, what is my godson doing falling out of the sky into the women's only hot of resort village and not in Konohagakure? Also, I'll be asking this question to Naruto-kun as well, once he wakes up from the overload of chakra I released from a restriction. And when he is well, I and Shizune will escort him home to Konoha. Also, due to that fact that Naruto-kun is with me and not in Konoha with Jiraiya, I will be staying in Konoha to oversee his protection and upbringing. So that pervert or you better have a good reason for this, or I will be sending your balls to your wife." Signed, Senju Tsunade. After reading the contents of the letter, Sarutobi felt a huge amount of relief at the fact that Naruto was found and would be returning home, then that all changed. Got through the letter and prayed to all the kami that his excuse is worthy and that Jiraiya pen hand is not injured too badly, but the most noteworthy was the hope that he would survive the encounter. After a while, Sarutobi calmed down enough to know he had to tell the others of who held Naruto in their hearts, so with an almighty yell of Anbu, and then commanded them to retrieve the ones who loved Naruto. After 2 hours, the 3 members of Team 8, Aburame Shino, Yuhi Kurenai and Hyuga Hinata, along with Gekko Hayate, his wife Yugao, Yamanaka Ino, her parents and Hyuga, with his youngest, Hanabi, as well as Inuzuka Sume and her daughter Hana, the Ichiraku family and Uchiha Makoto. The night of the Uchiha affair, Makoto was visiting goddaughters Hinata and Hanabi with various others girls, young and old, whom Naruto had helped, mainly drawing the girls' attention towards a pervert whom was spying their fun time. Then after they were all seated, Hiruzen started with, "Thank you all for coming at short notice," as he looked at their sullen face and offered a small smile, continued with, "I have received a letter from my student, Tsunade-chan, and she said that Naruto-kun had dropped right out of the sky and landed in her arms, before to allow for the looks of hope to fill their faces, then said, she said that he is currently exhausted, but once he is well rested, Tsunade-chan will escort him home," to the joy from the crowd and tears of happiness from those who held Naruto the closest in their hearts. Back in Nisuzungakure no Sato, Naruto Venom had just awakened once more to find that he had not been dreaming before, that he was free from Orochimaru's clutches, a cold feel, all of his chakra flowing at full strength, which was now stronger than he had remembered it, and then the sound of shifting bedsprings caught his attention, so turned towards the sound. He found both of the women whom had helped him earlier, curled up in a spoon position and fast asleep. Careful to not wake them, Naruto Venom got out of the bed and stretched out his muscles, which had become stiffer than die-cast metal from lying down for so long, and was up. The desire to return to nature flared up, so he headed for the closest thing that looked like a toilet, which was a toilet by the way. Back in the bedroom, the 2 cudwomen woke up to see that the bed was missing someone and heard the telltale sound of water splashing water, deducing that he was busting for the toilet and not running away. Tsunade and Shizune had waited for him to finish. After deciding that a shower would relieve his stiff muscle more than the stretch earlier, Venom commanded his symbiote to retract the last of his clothing, his underwear, turned on the shower and stepped into the warm water. 30 minutes later, Naruto Venom was finished in the shower and with a small pulse of Alison Crestmare, aka Maglava form, he was dry and ready to clothe himself, which was done with a thought, which seconds later Venom was now dressed in a black sleeveless tight muscle shirt, carg shorts and shinobi boots. Once finished, Naruto Venom had exited the bathroom. He found that his helpers were awake and one was more recognizable, which he voiced, "We know you, you're Senju Tsunade. Orochi Tem told us about you after forced us to bond during one of his experiments on tests our healing powers." Tsunade was delighted to hear that her godso recognized her, but then frowned in rage at the idea of her former teammate experimenting on him. While Shizune didn't look that much better and made a silent oath to keep from happening again, if it was not as silent as she thought, as Venom could hear it using the powers of Psylocke's brother Psyblade telepathy, but chose not to comment. Hours later, Tsunade had calmed down and asked, "Naruto-kun, why do you refer yourself as we, instead of I?" Venom looked at her and mentally commanded the symbimorph fully into his battle suit and said, "We are 2 beings in one body, one a living set of cloths and another a host, both working together to ensure the survival of both sides. Together we are 2 in 1, together we are Venom and Naruto." Pausing slightly to take a breath and finished with, "Orochimaru had discovered these cloths and wanted to what it could do and used us to do it. 2 days after Tsunade and Shizune had met Naruto, is where we now find all 3 of them traversing the tree tops. Well, Tsunade and Shizune were traveling via the tree to Naruto slid along a track of ice weaving in and around trees, as they made their way west to Konoha. It had taken them 2 days. Tsunade and Shizune were so pissed off. Naruto had answered their questions, which it took 1 day to calm down, mainly using the hot springs and some venting on a slot machine crank or whatever they were to see. Their heads, even Shizune gambled a way to relieve the tension. Now while Naruto was exhausted after the last time he had done this time was different, as with the release of his chakra, Naruto had more stamina than before and helped him make it half to Konoha, before even feeling the slight signs of fatigue. Though the same couldn't be said for Tsunade and Shizune, as both of them were knack. The halfway point also it was approaching nighttime, and this was where they said, Naruto-kun, we're going to set up camp here and continue on tomorrow, okay? Ma. Naruto direct his ice track to the ground, there he made 3 hammocks out of his webs, slung them to the tree and dug out a fire pit, which filled with molten rock. Once camp was set up, Tsunade then unseal a few camping supplies like a camping kettle, grill plate and a pair of tongs, while Shizune unsealed a bottle of water, meat, and cutlery. Before Tsunade set the grill plate over the molten rock and Shizune filled the kettle with water and set it to boil. As the water boiled, Naruto zip-lined into the tray. Above and wove a tarpaulin of webs over the campsite in case it rained. Once done, Naruto returned to ground and found a cup tea waiting for him. Few minutes later and Shizune had finished the stew for their, which they eat in an air of light conversation. The next morning, they woke up and packed what was needed, then left heading west again, which was when they found themselves in Nami no Kuni. Once Nami, they made their way to a village with a boat port, for a boat to the mainland, and what they found was a dump. Kids from Naruto's age down in nothing but rags beg for money just to survive the taxes of village's self-claimed lord. They saw pictures of a midget wearing a crown and the title, Gato, your lord and savior, pay me or suffer, had gone over badly for them. They also saw that the shops had ludicrously high prices for different wares, even the cheap candy was the price of a 34-page book. But the one thing they noticed above all others, was the lecherous stares Tsunade and Shizune were getting from the samurai armor-wearing police-like force, which when Naruto gave them the most power glare, it seemed like it was being powered by the Shinigami and making them shiver, before looking at something else. Of this Actio, not missed by Tsunade, and she beamed at him, feeling that he was not a pervert. That was always a good thing in her books before turning her attention to a wanted Poe. Which the subject of the poster confused the hell out of her and the two she was with. Once they also noticed with her. After taking their eyes off the poster, they all silently agreed that it was bogus and sought to talk to the source, the subject of the poster, Tazuna the Bridge, whom after the scouted around, found out that he had gone to Konoha to ask for some help in getting rid of Gato, though they thought he would not have enough money for an assassination mission and more a bandit protection mission. After seeing that they could not talk to Tazuna, they decide the next best thing would be to wait for him to return and talk tea. While on the road between Nami and Konoha, the bridge builder in question was now giving his sob story to the team he had hired for his mission, after they had a run-in. The demon brothers, and of course it had worked, but only on 3 people. A power-hungry emo, who was looking for a fight, an emotional banshee, whom was in despair. The thought of a love tax, and perverted rooster, who had been looking for a way to get a forward thought that sent him to the floor in a second, as Naruto had heard that. During the exchange, a figure stealthily jumped out of the tree line and grabbed the downed form of Zabuza, an action caught by the senses of Naruto, but since they were retreating and the client came first, he felt that he should let them go. After Tsunade and Kakashi had their exchange, Naruto then decides to comment, "Look guys, we're ducks," and the swordsman fled with the help of another. As he looked around and then sequestered, "Yes, we sensed it happen while you were talking, Tsunade-sama, but you've said, the client come first, and first thing we must do is make sure Tazuna-san is safe," before directing his attention to the client, asking, "How far is your house here?" Producing a pair of hard light wing constructs from his shoulder blades. Once Naruto had formed his wings, he took to the air in a hover, so if needed he could quickly travel over water, and Tazuna watched over him, below him, before saying 20 kilometers in that direction, pointing to the right. Get the direction. Naruto decided that speed was still needed, and so did Tsunade and Shizune, so with that thought swooped in behind Tazuna and scooped him up, before flying off in the pointed direction, Tsunade and Shizune following on the ground at ninja speeds. It took 10 minutes, but finally Team 7 had followed behind the Sannin, apprentice and the godson. Of course 3 of them were now hard-pressed to keep their anger under, but knew they could do nothing as Tsunade had more power and experience, therefore had the right to remove Kakashi's role as leader. So they followed at more subdued, knowing that it would be hell if they didn't. After the figure who had retrieved Zabuza unconscious body had left, the figure had continued to jump through the tree line heading a hideout to allow for the ninjas recover. Plan their next moves, which was where the figure came across a rusted hull of an oil tanker. Yes, oil does exist outside of the Sweden. Koku no Jutsu, water-style black raw technique in oil spitting that Gamabunta uses, and entered the wreck. Seeing all the comforts of home, the figure then places Zabuza down on an empty bed. Scavenged from a hospital bin and cleaned. Once Zabuza was on the bed, the figure then went through several hand seals and then her hands began to glow green, were then used to heal the broken bones caused by the hits to the stomach and the chest. After they were healed, the figure then moved to his head and instantly, Zabuza woke and said, Haku, pack your things and get Gato's first installment. We are quitting this job, especially if Tazuna's going to be protected by a Sanin, the figure now known. Haku responded, Hi, Zabuza-sama, in a feminine voice and moved to her main area of the hideout, where she began to pack her things, with a sigh from Zabuza who she would call him, Tu-san. Meanwhile Tsunade, her group and Team 7 now made it to Tazuna's home, where Naruto gently deposited his passenger on the ground and landed himself, before retracting wings, before they were joined by Tsunade and Shizune, who both had to slow down and wait for Team 7, so they could drag them faster. Once they were all at Tsunade immediately took Kakashi to a private room and laid into him like she would, when she catches someone peeking on her, while the rest of the team, Naruto and got introduced to Tsunami and her son Inari, whom had already met Naruto and thought he was cool. After a while, Kakashi and Tsunade returned to the living room, with former announcing, with Zabuza still alive and could return at any time, we'll need to do some training and we will starting with tree climbing, to the aghast looks for Shiz and Tsunade, with Naruto simply showing a blank face, but laughing on the inside. Naruto had done chakra training exercise while with Orochimaru, because it helped him with the focus and control needed to use Bobby Drake's and Allison Crestmar powers. An hour later, Naruto returned to the clearing he had been using earlier with Shizune to collect their abandoned supplies and training equipment, before heading back to Ta house, to set up closer to the client. That night Tsunade resummoned her slug messenger to deliver a request of assistance for Kakashi, who in his infinite wisdom did not bother or think of the need to, due to his arrogances, request help and sent the request after Naruto had finished writing it, thinking Hokage could use a sliver of proof in Tsunade's words. Of course the only issue remaining was where all of them going to sleep. The house only fit a set amount and with the two teams it meant that one would sleep outside, which of the majority vote was Tsunade. Shizune and Naruto were to sleep outside. 2 days had passed and the bridge was been constructed on schedule, even with the diminished workforce, and in those 2 days, only Naruto had made any progress in his training, which he showed by quickly progressing long-distance and stationary targets to the mid-range, moving targets of different wildlife like deer, boars and oddly crocodile, and since the arrows were made of mental energy it simply took a thought to remove them. Of course the dead animals were put to use and their skin was cured leather, with the meat been preserved and consumed. Team 7 training was not that productive, as Sakura, the pink-haired banshee, would not even think of training, while Sasuke didn't even bother doing and believed the task weren't need, so he therefore went to Tsunade and ordered her to teach him all of her powers, which always got him out of the house via the second-story window in Naruto's webbing. It was then on the third day that Gato had discovered and said, "It's time to wake up. Tazuna isn't paying you to sleep and have to protect himself." From the floor the 3 of the 4 members glared Naruto with fury, that was ignored and dismissed. Once Team 7 finally got ready for the day, Tsunade informed them of the battle plan and with the threat of being sent to T. no Kuni via Tsunade's fist, they agreed and hoped the plan would fail. Once on the bridge, that was now 90% complete and no sign of Zabuza, so with that Tazuna had his workforce begin the construction of the final 10% of the bridge, with Naruto's webbing providing a solid wirework frame to act as a guideline. It is the whole spider silk tensile strength deal, in reinforcement. 12 hours later, Tazuna final slab into place in the Kumo no Hashi, Bridge of Spiders, named after the spider-themed hero, Naruto, and the one who helped Nami in more ways than one. That evening 6 hours later, Nami was in a state of elation as they partied the night away, without Gato interrupt the proceedings or Zabuza doing a jump scare. But with all things, something just had to come and ruin it for everyone, because an explosive splash of water and the sounds of fighting had drawn the attention of all those whom Ha to enjoy the party, which was when a smoking projectile came out of the water splash and crash landed in the now crater, that was once the village's central fountain. Not was a good one. Nami was going to remodel it once Gato's influence was gone. Konoha Shinobi and Kunyuchi took this as an attack and prepared for the fight ahead, but they weren't prepared for was when smoking from of Zabuza showed that he have projectile and was now getting back into a guard form. It was not for the Konoha ninjas, but for another figure who appeared out of the sky and thrusted a sword just as Kubikiribocho. Once Zabuza had caught the blade, he looked around and said, I know it is hard to believe, but I no longer am contracted to kill the bridge builder, so your help I am tired and my daughter in all but blood is too far away. While he hopes that they would believe him and render assistance, luckily enough Naruto had heard silent plea and hopes to believe him and then dashed into the fray to aid Zabuza, while morphing his battle suit on. With his battle suit fully in place, Venom then formed his psionic blade and helped Zabuza parry against his opponents. The combined strength of Venom and Zabuza was to throw their opponent off guard and make their first strike, both of which were a downward slash. The Konoha Jonin, Sanin and apprentices, Shizune and Genin, saw W. Naruto did in knowing that his telepathy would have told him the truth, as he would not have helped if he wasn't, and so with that in mind Shino made the first move. Both his friend and Zabuza, by commanding his insects to converge on the assailant to drain his energy, while Tsunade jumped in the air to deliver her signature Sutenkyaku, heavenly heel or foot of pain. As Venom, Zabuza, Tsunade and Shino fought the assailant, Kurenai, Hinata, Ino and Shizune leapt off in the direction that Zabuza had come from, in order to render assistance to Zabuza's daughter, and found that she even more overwhelmed by her own opponent, who of which now had her on the ground, bound and gagged as he was. Process of removing his pants, an action that really pissed the girls off, but none more so than Hinata, and she proved to him that you don't piss a medically trained Hyuga oh. You wish for a tortuous death that never comes. Back in the main fight, as Naruto performed the Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Shadow Clones, to multiply his power output with archers firing arrows, freshets the Falcon's weapon from Avengers Assemble, magma balls and ice spears, while he was joined by Venwolf Venom Wolverine, who was his claws to gorge out his opponent's muscles. Returning to where Kurenai, Hinata, Ino and Shizune were rendering assistance to Haku, after the beating Hinata gave the would-be rapist, before Kurenai finished him Genjutsu of millions of naked men doggy piling him. Once the Genjutsu went into affect, the scum of the earth had screamed and then became blank-eyed, showing that H was destroyed. Shizune went to Haku's side and calmed her down enough to administer first aid. Hours later, Zabuza, Naruto, Tsunade and Shino had leapt into the area, after their battle and found the girls, all sitting around Haku with Shizune running green glowing H over Haku's body, while Hinata was massaging some homemade cream into the less serious wounds to help in the process, and the lavender in the cream had helped Haku's her mind, causing her to fall asleep. Smiling under his bandages, Zabuza approached his daughter's helpers and asked, how is she? With an unhidden level of concern, Getty. Better once she has had a good rest, from Ino, before she thumbed in the direction of her would-be rapist, but he's not, though we'd thought you liked to finish him off. Oh. Have repaired his mind, which made Zabuza now notice the unbuckled belt and scowled in realization. As Naruto hear this, he became apocalyptic and stalked over to the downed man, reaching out for the scum dirty head, before a symbol of a butterfly in a magenta color form over his own head, and within seconds, the scum was once again screaming his head off, but was then silenced by the killer intent aimed towards him, from both Naruto. Zabuza, as the form of asked, Zabuza-san, can I have the first go? And then you can play piñata with him all you want. Curious as to what the kid would do, Zabuza said. Kid. But make sure you leave some for me, unknowingly release the demon on someone. Grinning at the okay, Naruto then turned his attention towards the scum, and with the flick of the wrist, Naruto shot out a stream of webbing that cocooned the person. Person was completely covered. Naruto walked up to the cocoon and set him up like a football, before giving the ball a vertical punt into the air and then zip-lining himself. Ball, where he kicked it horizontally, webbed it back to him and swung him around like a top, before throwing it further into the air and finally sent the package back to ear, leaving a crater behind. Once Naruto was finished, he strung the ball onto a tree branch and announced, "There you go, Zabuza-san, it's ready," to the manic laughter of Za, who then picked up a police baton, a jute if I am right, and proceeded to whack the ball in order to get to the candy. After an hour of whacking, Zabuza's arm got tired and he just decides to slice his toy open at the waist. Once the two halves fell to the floor, Zabuza's noticed that Haku was up and talking amicably with the girls that were with Tsunade and decided it was time to stop running and called, "Tsunade-san, may I speak to you alone?" To the busty bee. As the others drew their attention to Zabuza, Tsunade said, "Yes, you may," and walked over to him. A while later, they returned to Haku's side and Zabuza said, "Haku, is T stopped running? I have asked Tsunade-san if Konoha would offer us asylum and she said that she make sure of it," to the response of, "Hi, Zabuza-sama," much to high irritation. The next day, the convoy of Jonin, Sanin, apprentices and genin, set off for Konoha, at a higher than normal shinobi speeds, mostly due to Naruto's desire to see his home. 6 years of been Orochimaru's captive, even if Kakashi did try to attack Haku and Zabuza, before they left. The closer and closer the group came to Konoha, Naruto had to from his ice track to his web swinging, which drew the attention of each of the girls in the group, some in the admiration of his grace as he swung agilely through the denser area and others were getting pissed off over how Naruto was stealing her love spotlight. 2 hours later and Naruto did his final swing, which he ended with a flourished back flip and landed in front of the main gate of the west side entrance and exit point of Kon. The sight in which greeting them when they arrived brought a great bit of irritation to Tsunade. Once the others caught up, as they saw the guards in the guard post lean back into their chairs, with their headbands over their eyes and light snores escaping their lips. Observing the sight, Tsunade signaled Naruto to get their attention and boy get their attention, when zipped to the top of the shack and surface crawled behind them, before he webbed up their feet and then returned to his original position, before yelling, "Look alive, gentlemen, Hokage-sama had decided to review your work," in a deep voice, arousing voice, to Kurenai, Ino, Hinata, Shizune and Haku, causing the sleepers to jump in surprise but could due to being stuck to the floor and it just appeared that they bobbed back and forth like a punching bag, just right side up. The results from the prank were met with laughter from a majority of the assembled group and only the members of Team 7 weren't laughing. Several minutes later, after gained some control over her laughter, did Tsunade address the two guard, Senju Tsunade, Kato Shizune and Team 7 returning from an A-ranked mission, with 3 guests live in Konoha, using an authoritative voice that still held some chuckles. Also, one of the 3 is raring to see the Hokage, so could we sign in and head to the tower? She had at the end, but it was not a question and she was partially ignored in favor of nodding to her announcement and glare at the armored Venom, as he steps up to sign the Venom. After everyone was signed in, the group then made their way through the village, with Tsunade drawing a lot of eyes, which darted between and the fully armored Venom, so admiring the look of the armor and other looking to see if they could replicate it, as it looked as if it was for a shinobi to use. And the route they took was through the blacks and shinobi equipment shops. Ignoring the eyes, the group headed through to the Hokage, bypassing the receptionist and they entered the office without knocking and Funiruzen was with Jiraiya, as the later was handing the former an orange-colored book and the sight made the girls, except for Sakura as she liked the smut series, in the GR. Angry, Tsunade in particular was furious and said, "Ero-sensei, Tsunade and Team 7 have returned, now are you ready for a beatdown? And don't even think about it, Jiraiya, you stay and wait your turn," causing them to freeze, before Jiraiya unfroze and tried to jump out the window, but found his ass webbed to the seat he was in. 1 hour after Naruto was reunited with the Sandame, he dismissed himself from the office so Tsunade could get her answers without scarring the genin, though not that shish cared about the Uchiha, and decided web swing around the village to see what had changed or who had changed during the time he was gone. So after vaulting out off the Hokage's office window, Naruto immediately shot a line of web out at a building's ledge and started his swing to Ichiraku Ramen. He had an old man to see about a ramen. Swinging through the village, Naruto treated the village, of who some had treated him, to a show of aerial ballet and those who watched were memorized over the grace and elegance of the dance, before Naruto dropped in front a small, that had its entrance blocked by simple flaps. Hearing the flaps from inside, Tsuki and Ayame turned to the but froze when they saw the armored figure as he walked in and sat down in the spot reserved for Naruto, but when they were about to reprimand him, the figure spoke. Gigi, I'll take the Maelstrom Special Extra Large, side order of satay beef sticks and pint of apple juice, in a familiar way in a familiar order. Naruto-kun, they both said, after the figure ordered and the figure's armor morphed into a familiar young man with sun-kissed blonde hair, azure-colored eyes and whisk marks on each cheeks, wearing a short-sleeved dark almost black silver muscle shirt, black cargo shorts, sports gloves, silver-laced combat boots and a silver-webbed black. Who was wearing a sexy fox grin. When the boy nodded his head, Ayame lunged across the counter and snatched up the boy, cuddling him to her chest, while her father brought his arms around the both of them, in a welcome back hug. While elsewhere in the village, Ino, Hinata and Shino were now rounding up all their friends who loved Naruto, to tell them of the good news and arrange a proper welcome home. As both teammate and Naruto had been doing their own thing, Kurenai and Tsunade were busy laying into the now pale and ghost-white Hokage and Jiraiya, the later his inability to be Naruto godfather Jiraiya was the ghost-white one and the Hokage was just pale, before it was decided that a crotch stomp was a too kind of a punishment and used an old but still active law, that states when the leader of the village is not doing her job properly, then the elder clans, the founders of a village with long-living clans are under this category the elders, advisors. Kaharu Udatane and Horuma Mitokado aren't in the group and are just older farts with a chip on the shoulder, while Shimura Danzo is meant to be a wartime advisor whom can't see when there is peace in the world or can only see enemies even with allies, to remove high from the position of Hokage and then placed herself as Hokage, with her first orders being to summon the council and Venom, whom she gave description of his armored F. Later with Venom, after Ayame had let him go, Tsuki set about making Naruto's order, while Ayame grilled him for information and smothered with affection that him miss much, before he was served his ramen and he ate it like a normal person, rather than pack it away. Hours later, after his fourth helping, Naruto bid them adieu and paid for lunch, before head out again, fully armored but by foot because this time he was doing a sightseeing trek and wanted to go slow to see it all. Half an hour later, his spider senses alerted him to a presence which had dropped down and asked, "Are you Venom, sir?" Venom turns to the presence and saw the Neko wearing Anbu. Azuki Yugao in answer, "We are Anbu-san," to the reply of, "Tsunade-sama has requested your presence in the council chambers, in one breathe before S. And I am to escort you, sir," and Naruto replies, "Very well shall we," as he took her hand. Once Venom took Neko's hand, they both were whisked away in a cloud of dust and oddly leaves considering the tree-less area they were in. Out the front of the council chambers, Venom and Neko appeared out of thin air, before both of them entered the room. Entering the room, Venom saw the many members of the council and civilian advisors sitting around the central with their backs to the shadow, while in the seat of the Hokage was Tsunade with Hiruzen was in the Sarutobi clan seat. After entering the room, Naruto walked to the Hokage and said, "Venom reporting is ordered Hokage-sama, in respect, very well Venom, take the seat in the Uzumaki seat and don't unmorph yet," was his reply and he sat where in a seat ablazed with a crimson spiral. This action was met with a lot of curiosity from the Shinobi Council, as outrage from the Civilian Council, believing the Uzumaki have no right to be a part of the council. Seeing the enraged state of the civilians, Tsunade started, "First all Staro, it is nice to be back, but it is also not the time to celebrate my return, as it is on bad circumstances." Looking over the confused faces, Tsunade continues with, "I have returned due to the need of returning my godson home and find out why he had been kidnapped by my former teammate Orochimaru, as well as why a search was not conducted," with the look of total loss on a nameless councilwoman's face, as she asked, "Tsunade-sama, who is your godson?" In dread, which had switched to rage, answer was, "Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, the son of our Yondaime Hokage and Uzumaki Kushina." This was then met with the scream of, "Lies," in denial and calls of, "Sir, you're joking, he a demon," from all the civilians. The screaming, screeching and yelling continued for the better part of an hour, before Tsunade flared her killer intent and quelled the uproar. Then she continued with, "The a joke or a lie, this as the proof, while passing around several copies of Naruto's birth certificate, making the council's elder and civilian pale a lot, and then the sound of someone clearing their throat interrupted them. Hokage-sama, before we continue further, how many Anbu are to be guarding the chambers? Adopting the confusion, civilian Tsunade answers, 4 guards. Venom-san, while looking in the areas they were hiding in, before returning to Venom and asked, why do you ask? Our Spider-sen, picking up 8 people hidden in the shadow, milady, was her answer, to the silence of the chambers. In the silence of the chambers, several sound of displaced wind was heard, as 4 blurs shot out of the window from behind the Hokage and her 3 advisors, all of whom panicking over the reveal. Regaining herself, Tsunade orders Anbu track and capture them before they get away, making the 4 true Anbu leap from their spots to fall after the blurs. After a while, the Shinobi Council were put on high alert, as they were now needed to protect the civilians and themselves while the Anbu was gone. 2 hours later, the Anbu had not returned, and so with a moment's hesitation, Tsunade recalled the meeting to order. Okay people, there is still a meeting to conduct and things are still needed addressing. As the 3 councils looked on, clue, Tsunade commands, Venom, reveal yourself, which was the hidden signal for Naruto to unmorph his. Showing to the surprise and anger of the council, that Venom was in fact Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. After revealing himself, Sume, who happened to be sitting next to him, Naruto-kun, is that you? In hope, before she was hugged in the familiar method that Naruto had always hugged her, saying, yes Suka-chan, we are back and we nave any of you, in reassurance, and caused all the other shinobi clans to silently celebrate. It was now 2 hours since the council meeting, with Naruto getting a battlefield promotion to Genin, and Naruto was now setting up his room in the Senju compound with assistance of Shizune, as Tsunade had need to stay in the Hokage's office and do some paperwork, which she smartly performed the Kage Bushin no Jutsu to get herself straight. During the meeting, while outside of the compound, the girls who hold Naruto in their hearts were busy setting up a party to properly welcome Naruto back in ramen wa, the mainly served food. On the other side of the village, a man with 90% of his body being bandaged and leaning heavily on a cane, quietly slid into a passage where there was a lift, which he directed it to down with a push of a button. What else would you have called it? So it brought him to a large array of catacombs, which he traversed until he made it to a secondary meeting area, and the area was already occupied by 2 other people, Kaharu and Homura, who were sporting faces of aggression and fear, which was an interest combination, aggression because of their forced retirement and the return of Naruto, while they feared that while Tsunade was the Hokage, then laws that they had support could be removed, i.e. lowering the standards of the academy to allow for more civilian ninja. Once the mummy man had approached him from his entranceway, Kaharu. Danzo, what can we do? With Naruto adopted by Tsunade-san, there is no way to return him to Orochimaru or control him. Also with Tsunade-san as Hokage, any of our PLA could not work. Where should we go from here? Thinking of the questions emotionlessly, the mummy man, now known as Danzo, had said, nothing. Before stalling the 2 before him objections, nothing for now. As we tread carefully, Tsunade is not like Hiruzen, who has become old and complacent, so that we can find a way to remove her from the Hokage position, silencing them compel. Before a discussion of how turn this to their advantage. Meanwhile, 76% of the village was now partying the day away, in celebration of the return of Tsunade, and Naruto, was spent at the mixed gender hot springs. These hot springs are an area of multiple hot springs pools arranged so an island of stone was in the center. Author's note: the 24% of village whom aren't at the celebrations are perverts. Team 7, the elders en route, along with various clans and family, are in denial over the QB brat being simply related to the Yondaime Hokage. Hours into the party, Naruto was kept busy by all of the girls talking to him and asking where he was or what he had been doing, which he answered truthfully and with contact, which caused him to be revered by each and every single girl there. The only time, however, when he hadn't been, was when he was asked his opinion on things like whether a tattoo would look good them and where to put it, or question on who had the better body and if there was any need to train more time into the party, and then interrupted by the sounds of perverted giggles from the fence lines during the quieter relaxing periods. Pissed off at the sounds, Naruto excused himself from the girl had cuddled up to him, before exiting the spa, clothed in a pair of shorts, to find and deal with the peeping toms. Outside, Naruto found the peepers and discovered that they were all of the known perverts of Konohagakure, both closets and public, the main ones being Itachi, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and a civilian, the clan name of Tento Inki, perverted penis, with the latter being his pervert with a taste of those whom are 19 years old and younger. Find them. Naruto called them out. Okay, perverts, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, which made them all freeze, before Naruto finished with, well, it looks like W. Doing this both ways, before morphing his armor on and began by webbing up the perverts, then he created several cage bushins to swing them around like flails, before sending them flying towards the Hokage monument. Though the trajectory was off and the perverts were flung over the top of the mountain. Flying up past them on his hard light hollow wings, Naruto then flew into a tight circle, releasing vast amounts of mist, frost and heat. This caused a climate reaction that's a mini tornado with which Naruto controlled and contained with his telekinesis. It stand to reason that if Psylocke had the symbiote, then Venom would increase her psi powers to encompass all mental abilities but not the Phoenix Force. Commanding the tornado, Naruto directed it to suck up all the pervert and throw them around like orbiting a planet at high speeds. 3 hours later, Naruto then used his telekinesis to stop the tornado and catch the perverts, before he delivered them to the hospital, and doctors were not impressed, though it could because they were all female, and guessed what happened. Once he had completed his job, Naruto returned to his welcome home party and returned to relaxing, with the girls he had being snuggling, which had increased in number a gratitude for dealing with the perverts. Back outside of the hot springs, a lone duck butt-haired shaped figure was standing in front of a training post, with he decorated with pictures of his brother Itachi and pictures of Naruto, and this motivated him to pound the buggery out of to post, leaving nothing but a toothpick behind, as he cursed all things that were going wrong, like how his mother is with Naruto now, or how she has no desire to avenge their clan, nor press for the promotion of Itachi's rouge status. Never cared for her husband and was relieved when she found him dead. Morbid, I know, and happy she could take care of Sasuke better, not that it worked with the showering him with undeserved praise. Back at the hot springs, it was starting to get dark and the ninja teams had training sessions early in the morning, so with a lot of reluctance party had being packed away, families went back to their separate clan homes, houses and everything else in between. Raise eyebrow suggestively. In the Uchiha compound, however, Sasuke was his knees in front of a barely singed training post he had tried to burn, which his fireball and failed badly, as his cursed Naruto again for his inability to obtain the needed power, being observed by his stalker Haruno Sakura. Later that night, Naruto is now in the Senju Jutsu library, reading a book on elemental chakra natures, the how-tos of discovering what elements you have and how to trait them, when his spider senses alerted him to an intruder. After sensing the intruder, Naruto morphs his armor on and wall crawls to the ceiling, where he blends into the shish and begins hunt his hunter. Deep within the Senju, a masked figure with no discernible features stalked the shadows. His target to him was only known as the demon brat, was going to make him pay for the lies Tsunade had spouted about him. As the figure stalked his prey, he had no idea that he was the one now being hunted, as a few meters back on the ceiling, Naruto was silently crawling up behind him and the figure stopped to take a quick scan in the direction he was taking. Last thing he needed was to be caught by Tsunade or Shizune, in an effort to locate his target. Before target had quietly dropped down behind him and with a double Kumo handseal, shot out a thick strand of webbing. Once the Naruto had shot his webbing, the strands kanto his opponent's back and then he gave a sharp pull, drawing his arms back, wrenched the assailant off his feet and towards Naruto's awaiting kick. The kick itself connected with the figure's lumbar vertebra, dislodging it and caused the figure to be rocketed into an aerial sideways barrel roll, which then flipped him through a window on the other side of the hall, with the shards of glass ripping the hood and mask off, to reveal the still healing face of Hitaki Kakashi. The breaking glass caused security seals to be triggered, seals in which are not triggered if one were to open the window gently or as gently as possible. The seals are embedded into the windows during the manufacturing process, which work up the rest of the house and alerted Tsunade in the Hokage's office. With the alarms literally running through the village, putting most of the shinobi and kunoichi on high alert, i.e. the ones who follow the Hokage and not the civilian council. Tsunade from within her office called forth the Anbu and had them investigate the source of why her clan's compound alarms went off. Going with them, Tsunade dropped from the rooftops outside of her home and found her godson, Naruto in full Venom armor, fighting against a heavily rugged-up figure, known as Hitaki Kakashi, who had on the receiving end of a tidal wave of volcanic rock, as the Anbu and the Hokage arrived. With Kakashi as he is sent flying through the air, via a rock wave, but he manages a flip in midair and land with his feet on the wall-like fence of the Senju clan, sticking to T surface with chakra, before flooding his legs with chakra to launch himself at Naruto, with a pair of dueling kunais and a cry of, "Die demon," only to be blocked by Naruto claws, that shot out quickly from his knuckles. Blocking the blades with his claws, Naruto hooked his claws into the kunais and with a sharp joint of his wrist, they broke Kakashi to drop them and pick out a new pair, but that had left him open for another counter and was kicked in the groin, for his mistake, before he then was kneed in the stomach and he then collapsed. Collapsing to his knees, Kakashi gasped as the wind left him and fell forward catching himself with his hands. It was then that Tsunade made herself known to the Kombata. With Agent Venom, John and Hawkett stand down, listening to the Hokage. Venom relaxed his guard and unmorphed his suit saying, "Hi Hokage-sama," respectfully, as Hawk simply stay in his keeled-over position, panting. After a bit, Tsunade approached the two ninja and commanded, "Agent Venom report, Tsunade-sama, we were relaxing aft. Welcome back party in the Senju library. When our spider senses alerted us of a danger and since the alarms were never triggered, we decided it would be prudent to invest. It was then that we found this person, skulking around the shadows and a quick telepathic scan of his mind revealed who he was and what his mission was, so we felt it would be a good idea to alert you of the break-in, by engaging him in battle," responded Naruto. As he went on with the report, Tsunade got angrier and angrier. By the end of the report given by Agent Venom, not only was Tsunade pissed off, but the Anbu whom had being friends with Kakashi were disillusioned and were questioned their senpai's faith in the Yondaime Hokage, his own sensei's skills, but however, they could do nothing as commands from Tsunade came, "Anbu, arrest and take Kaka's T&I, tell them that Anko can go all out with this one," making them pale behind their masks, before they then took Kakashi away. After the Anbu took Kakashi away, Suna sent several clones back to the Hokage's office to pack up the leftover paperwork, while the original and Naruto headed inside the Senju compound. The next morning the Senju clan inhabitants awoke to the sounds of the hustle and bustle of the village markets attracting customizes left, right and center. The hustle and bustle was mostly regulated to the shopping district, as businesses began to open their doors to the day's customers and today was to be great day, with the sun shining. Night guard changed to the day guard and the rookie Konoha 9 plus Naruto began to awaken for their days of training sessions, though several girls were distracted by Naruto return. While the rest of Konoha ninjas had already being awake and finished their very sweaty training sessions, were now have a shower to clean themselves the muck grime. It was an hour later, when Naruto arrived at training ground 15 to meet his team, whom were already there and waiting. As Naruto approached he found that his were Ma of Haku and Zabusa, but had no fourth member yet. This made him happy as it means that the teamwork would already be there. Meanwhile in the Hokage Tower, Kakashi, now standing in front of the Shinobi Council, facing the angry faces of as 1 Ret 17. The clan heads in Hokage and Naruto is the Uzumaki clan head, but because he is a victim, he came a part of the jury. As the head of torture interrogated, "John and Hawkett, you are charged with the attempted murder of the Konoha ninja, how do you plead?" As the question came, Kakashi said, "Not guilty. It is that demon brat that should hear, not me," to the fury of the council, as Kakashi wished the civilians were here, knowing they were he would have some help. The head interrogator says, "Plea noted, now on with the first item of evidence," as he activated a memory viewing to show the the charges. After the memory finished, the council then debated for a moment and then let the man continue with, "John and Hitaki, as shown by the memory, you are guilty of the crime and the thought displayed with the memory, also state you as a traitor to the village and your fate is now to be deliberated," as the council continued to debate. The debating lasted longer than it was need, as they had already come to a decision and just wanted to watch Kakashi squirm, but eventually they came to a verdict. John Hitaki, due to your long-spanning service and reputation, your punishment is a dishonorable discharge, your Sharingan removed and your chakra sealed, told the spokes of the Shinobi Council, before they signaled for a hidden Anbu to take Kakashi away, who was protesting and screaming, who will train Sasuke in the Uchiha bloodline, and that monster is no shinobi, all to a way out. Hours after Kakashi was removed from the room, the elders and the civilian council had shown up. Tsunade-sama, why were we not told of this meeting? Spoke Elder Ho. In a fashion that spoke, answer me now or die. Answering, Tsunade said, this meeting was of a shinobi matter only, it had no bearing on the civilian side of the council's part where Kakashi set off the alarms of the Senju compound, which gained the attention of the civilian, as one asked, Kakashi broke into your house. What for? Yes. Kill my godson Naruto, was their answer, but been smart they left it at that and left the room. Back in training ground 15, Zabuza had decided to work on Naruto's kenjutsu, so he with the use of a training bokken clashed with enthusiastic fury, but not so much that swords snapped, in order for Zabuza to see what style would be right for his male student, but it was hard as Naruto's psychic blade extended out from his knuckles over normal handling fashion. While they were dueling, Haku was reading over the scrolls of healing jutsus Naruto had found in the library of the Senju compound and Unkonsk. Glancing at Naruto physic as he training, at the same time. It was night time, by the time that Zabuza had called a halt to their training and they couldn't settle of a single known style, so it was decided that Naruto would need to inventing a whole original style, which would accommodate of the way Naruto held his sword. Collecting Haku, Naruto and Haku then head out to the Akamaiki barbecue, meet with Ino and the other girls, bar Sakura, for a dinner date. During dinner, the girls were put out by the fact that only 2 people could sit near Naruto and the lucky ones we Hinata and Hana, but they never let themselves get jealous over that. Halfway through their meal, an Anbu had shown up and gave him the report on Kakashi's trail and punishment, which also included what they planned for the removed Char. Looking with her Byakugan, Hinata gasped as she read the report with Naruto and instantly became worried because the payment for Kakashi crimes were for Naru. Gain the eye of Kakashi and what would the civilians do scares her. The gasp from Hinata drew the other girls' attention, making Naruto read out the report to the girls, the punishment and how he was to receive the Sharingan eye from Kakashi, which also drew a worried gasp from the other girls too. After dinner, Naruto escorted all the girls to their homes and then headed for the Hokage Tower, to receive the Sharingan. Web swinging into the office via a window, Naruto, in a perched position on the ceiling, as the many members of the Shinobi Council and other Jonin, that were to be a witness. Once Naruto had arrived, Sume and Inoichi P. slightly to allow for space for Naruto, so Naruto was standing on the floor and then they waited. Civilian Hitaki Kakashi, your sentence has been approved, Tsunade starts, as she approaches the bound and silently protesting Kakashi, then Tsunade raise her hand to Sharingan eye, glowing green top numb the area, before she called for Naruto to approach and then without any hesitation, Tsunade extracted the eye and held it in front. Naruto, whose suit began to writhe and lash out. As the suit lashed out, it caught the eye and absorbed it into itself, making the full suit appear, while the symbiote made the changes to its host's DNA as it was happening. Kakashi was watching in hope of Naruto dying from the attempt, but it was to be as the suit's helmet retracted and showed Naruto's azure blue eyes, switched to red with 3 tomos, before changing to crimson with a black shuriken design, then to a web-designed red shuriken on a black background and finally to a ripple-designed silvery P. Looking on in shock, the assembled witnesses as they saw the Sharingan mutate into the Rinnegan. After the IS were full assimilated into Naruto's body, the Shinobi Council was now dismissed and with Naruto now exhausted, Tsunade had Shizune help get to the Senju compound, where she put Naruto to bed and then headed to bed herself. The next morning, Naruto's azure eyes opened to see the sun beaming through the crack in the draw. His bedroom window and as if on autopilot, Naruto got up and went through his morning rituals, save a shower, as he'll be doing some training today. While out in the village, several business owners were now waking up themselves and preparing for a hopefully hard days, see productive aka earn lots of money and be rich works or F. Days training. Hours later, Naruto had left for his team training session, as Tsunade headed for her office and made Kage Bushins to do the day's paperwork. Tsunade is not an idiot. Realized the potential of the clones, as all of the Hokage's paperwork was been filled. In a secret underground trench, two silver-haired men were speaking through a made seal that was connected to a receiver in the office of the Otokage. So my Venom has made it back to Konoha, has his, the Otokage hissed, showing the two men was Orochimaru, as one of the two men replied, "Hi Otokage-sama," before he went on to say, "I have also discovered, he was also given Hitaki Kakashi's Sharingan as a punishment for attempting to murder him," to the shock of Orochimaru, who demands, "What Sarutobi-sensei would never do that?" But was corrected by the other man. The Sandaime is not the Hokage anymore. Tsunade-sama returned with Venom and replaced the Hokage, when she saw that Sarutobi-sama was slacking off, which was with panicked hisses. On the other end of the seal, Orochimaru was standing in his lab-like office, trying to stay as calm as possible since his outburst of panicked hisses, eventually the calm woe. All it cost him was a few choice swear words, to the muffled chuckles of one person on the Konoha end of the seal. An hour later, Orochimaru ended the communications abandon his current project, so he could pace and brainstorm. Due to not having his Venom anymore, Orochimaru had to rethink his plans for the invasion. What can cause needed panic? He thought furiously as he wanders over to his desk, spying a message from his pawn in Sunagaku no Sato. In Konoha, Naruto was now within a large spectral ribcage, which was being used to deflect the slash from Zabusa's sword, before it then grew a pair of arms that wielded a knight's sword, and with the swords, Naruto took up an offensive strike call, Tsuki no Tsubasa no Odori, style which Naruto had began to invent the night before. Chapter 7 Chunin Exams Start. It has now been a week since the Kakashi's attempt on Naruto's life, where Naruto gained the Rinnegan as a payment for the trouble, while Naruto gained the Sharingan, due to the combination of a symbiote evolved body and the upgrading potential of the same symbiote, evolved the Sharingan into the Eternal Manchikyu Sharingan and Th. Rinnegan, and Naruto was making a lot of progress in the different Sharingan levels, as well as a few fields in the Rinnegan skills, mainly elemental chakra manipulation and yang creation chakra. With the yin and yang chakra, Naruto recreated all the invention ever built by Tony Stark, using the symbiote's memories from the time it was of Iron Man, and began to revolutionize Konoha agricultural and blacksmith. The inventions are powered by a complex network of fuinjutsu arrays, which mimic an arc reactor. We find Naruto in his team training ground, in the center of an ethereal spider-like humanoid warrior, swiping away at many water clones of his sensei Zabusa, using his spider limbs to slash and scratch them. Before Zabusa spots a bird in the sky, it was a messenger hawk, and calls, "Halt Naruto, Haku-chan, training is over and you are dismissed for the day," as looks over at his daughter, whom was perfecting a medical jutsu suggested by Senju Tsunade. 1 hour later, Zabusa joined the rest of the squad. And the Chunin exam proctors in the Hokage's office, ready to make his choices for the exams, but Tsunade had already known his picks. This meeting was just a formal nomination, and with the apprentices, all teams save Sasuke and Sakura, were ready for the test, but the new Team 7 Sensei Gecko Hayate wanted them all out of his hair a while and nominated them. As the Jonin meeting continued, Naruto and Haku headed into town, to find a place to have lunch and rest from the training, where they were then joined by Team 10, a 1/2. Team 8 Kiba hates eating in the restaurant district, and Kurenai was at the meeting, and the Konohamaru Corps, which they had met 3 days ago, when Konohamaru Thinky Grandpa was still the Hokage and had tried to win the Hokage position by walking through the office and through a wooden kunai, but tripped and tumbled into Tsunade's chess. Getting a chuckle from her as she then struck up chat with him, before having his sensei return him to the Sarutobi compound. Leaving the decision to the girls, Naruto, Konohamaru, Shikamaru, Shino, Udon and Choji followed the girls into a sushi joint called Ryu o Sukada Ryori, where they made the orders of crispy chicken, salmon fillets, vegetarian and ham. Was the lunchtime special. During their lunch, the teams were joined by Inuzuka's Hana and Sum, and Azuki Yugao, whom had the additional orders of satay beef bento and tuna melt sushi, as th. were eating. The boys talked about their training with the girls, and since the Sharingan affair, most of the talking he had done was about that and how his training with Rinnegan was going, which was quite well, as Tony Stark's IQ was able to amass ideas for the use of the eyes and allowed for a new angle in which to upgrade his other ability. Like how it took the X gene of cryokinesis, magmakinesis and made arborkinesis from the water and earth elements. After lunch, the teens head off to do their own thing, though the girls stayed with Naruto, as he was leading them to the Senju compound, and there the girls got into a bit of training, with help from the Senju library, which surprisingly held a lot of their clan's techniques, plus ones that they knew nothing about, and so with a scroll set out in front of them, Hinata began training the style of Yuho, that had been created by her clan's women, while Ino practiced with her clan's Ryutsu Bushin no Jutsu and Haku simply practice exercises that the Nadaime invented for moisture manipulation. Back in the Hokage's office, Iruka was expressing concerns that his former students were not ready for the Chunin, but was rebutted by the civilian council saying, "They aren't your students now, and Uchiha-sama must be in the exams to show our superiority to the Elemental Nine," a conceited tone, which made several hands flinch to a weapon holster. Back in the Senju compound, yawns started to animate from the inhabitants, and Naruto just say, "Girls, just stay the night, it is too late and you're too tired to make it home," while he gestures to the guest rooms and showers. The next day around 10 a.m., Naruto and Haku met up with Zabuza, and they were given the Chunin exams admission for them to sign and return them to Zabuza, who would be handing them in later, before they then went on to the training session. After an hour of training, Naruto and Haku were dismissed and were now going for a walk through the village, with a perfectly box-shaped rock crawling behind them. 30 minutes later, Naruto, who knew who the crawling box was, said, "Come on out, Konohamaru, Moegi, Udon, we know you're there," causing an explosion of smoke and coughing as the was flipped. Out of the box came smoke, of course, the Konohamaru Corps, all of whom now had puppy dog eyes, and asked, "Could play ninja with us?" In a cute that you cannot say to. Relenting, Naruto and Haku said, "Yes, we're first," making the kids run off, but before Naruto could start counting and allow Haku to join the kids, a voice of anger Sue. "Oi brat, I'll teach you to run into me," which was accompanied by a yelp of fear. Following both sounds, both Haku and Naruto chased it down to find Konohamaru on the ground in front of a catsuit wearing ninja from Suna, whom was retrieving a wrap bundle from his back, and thinking quickly, Naruto shot out his hand and fired of a bolt of ice towards the boy's package, making the Suna ninja hands change direction and for his crotch. As the ninja covered his crotch, Naruto revealed himself and said, "We wouldn't do that, makeup boy, that is the Sandaime grandson and there are a lot of Anbu around," much to the increased laughter of his female teammate, who began laughing the moment his dick got frozen. Ignoring what the blonde Konoha ninja said, the catsuited ninja known as Kankuro began to rub his ice-covered crotch, creating friction and heat, which was used to melt th. Because the action looked like he was masturbating, Naruto thought he was a pervert and proceeded to uppercut Kankuro in the chin, causing him to be careened into a turd. Other Suna ninja had the same idea and slammed him in the head her the iron part of her iron fan, that had been sheathed on her own back. After regaining himself, Kankuro was about to return to melting the ice on his nuts when a voice sounded, "Kankuro, continue and I'll kill you," making him look up into the hay had previously hid and found that the voice came from another Suna ninja who had red hair, black gi, white sash and open-toed boot-style sandals, on his forehead wa kanji for love, and strapped to his back was an hourglass-shaped gourd. Freezing up, Kankuro placed his hands by his side and tried to get up, but was stopped when he magenta-colored dagger of energy placed inches away from his jewels. The welder was the blonde one who had uppercutted him. Sheathing his blade, Naruto looks at the new arrival, and in his mind, an amused dark voice sounds, "Sniff, sniff, let's see. Sand, tanuki and blood, watch it kit this Isachibi no Jinchuriki." Mentally nodding, Naruto speak up saying, "Ick, it is good to see you again," making the blonde and catsuited Suna ninja pale, as the red head nod replies, "It is good to see you too, Q," which looked like he was prompted, turning his companions translucent. At the pale face of his teammates, Goes Gaara says, "Thave Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune and relax, we're not gonna start fight here or I'd be unable to vindicate my existence." The statement had done nothing to dissuade H. teammates, as they went paler and fainted. Well, Kankuro did Seeing his brother faint, he orders, Tamari, pick him up and take him back to the hotel, also say nothing to Baku-sensei, nodding the blonde known as Tamari, lift her bro, and vanish in a swirl of sand. After they left, Gaara turned to Naruto and explained who they were, why they were here and that he was looking forward to seeing them with a look that said, keep your guard up. After interacting with Naruto, Gaara headed off himself, to join his family and ready himself for the exams. While Naruto and the crew headed out to play ninja, though Unkto them and the Suna ninja, they had an extra ear on their conversation and heard the whole thing, but rather than inform her superior, Orochimaru, she ignored it went to her find. Hyo no Nakori no Jiken wa Janpu Suru, time jumped the rest of the day. It was now the day of the Chunin exams and Naruto woke up early, so he could treat his team with a high-energy breakfast, no knowing if the test was physical or not. So high-nutrient breakfast in their stomachs, Team 11 walked to the Ninja Academy. At the academy, Team 11 entered via a rooftop door that had been left open and proceeded. Head down the 3 flights of stairs to the 3rd floor, before they headed for classroom #313 where they met up with their sensei and was escorted into the room,